That FBO just across the field, Billionaire, that is a real live FBO name, which I love that name. Mostly for high-end Learjets and other such equipment. Hence the name Billionaire. Vancouver Tower, Luftwaffe-for tree, ready for departure, runway 26 right. I thought I was on tower frequency, sorry about that. Vancouver Tower, Luftwaffe-for tree, ready for departure, runway 26 right. You know, I hate to say this, but I think the reason we are on 26 left, I'm sorry to say this, folks, we should be on 26 right, which is way the heck over here. We're not going to get clearance to take off if we are on the wrong runway, and I'm afraid we are. So we're going to have a bit of a taxi. I apologize. This is the height of embarrassment. Yeah, I thought it very strange that they were not acknowledging that I had reached the runway. I had reached a runway, but not the proper runway. And you can't just assume that because you see someone else lining up for that runway that that's your runway. And I do believe initially when I planned the routing, I remember asking for 26 left, but when I was given taxi clearance, I know it was for 26 right. So it's all my fault. We're doing a little four-wheeling here. The one, you may not necessarily appreciate this, but for me, this is eye candy. This is a Payware airport. I really haven't had too much of a chance to explore it, although I am familiar with the real Vancouver airport from a passenger perspective. I am a pilot. I'm also a dispatcher, FAA certified pilot and FAA certified dispatcher, but I'm not a commercial airline pilot. I fly single engine float planes and Did that for a while in Seattle, mostly cruise ship passengers. Vancouver, Victoria, Sitka, Anchorage, mostly Alaska cruise ship passengers. I'd like to say I never had a desire to fly the heavy metal. That's not true. Flying the smaller airplanes, it has its own kick. But it's certainly a job for younger people. You know, you're throwing your own luggage, you are often your own cabin crew as well as flight crew. It's a very physical type of flying. The airplanes were built just after World War II. So if my life path would have caused me to be an airline pilot rather than the type of pilot that I was, I think I would have found joy in that. You know, Charles Lindbergh, I live in Minnesota. Charles Lindbergh is a Minnesotan, and he's had some controversy about him. He was anti-war at the start of World War II. Some people said he was a communist. But one thing, of course, he was a great aviator. And one observation he made, he said, you know, there are very few professions in life that combine the discipline of the sciences He said there are very few disciplines that combine very few endeavors that combine the discipline of science and the beauty of the natural world. And I think that's what aviation does. It's a marriage. To be a good aviator, you need to have a bit of an analytical mind. But you are in what some people might call God's wonder, and you certainly do have an appreciation for the natural world. I think one other profession that you could include in that, probably among others, would be medicine. You're also in the natural environment. Maybe to a lesser extent, law, philosophy. One of the great joys about aviation is you consider yourself a competent aviator and you're working with other competent aviators, and there's a level of respect that goes along with that. I know many young people today are often looking for a little respect. When you're on the correct runway, it's amazing how much attention you get from air traffic control. Vancouver Tower, Luftwaffe-for tree at runway 26 for departure. I should probably have phrased that better. Vancouver Tower, Luftwaffe-for tree, ready for departure, runway 26 right. Vancouver Tower, Luftwaffe-for tree, ready for departure, runway 26 right. Hit the takeoff configuration button one more time. Spoilers not retracted. Spoilers are retracted just fine. Thank you very much. May not have my, yeah, there it is. I have my spoilers armed. Is that what you wanted to see? Takeoff configuration. Okay, we'll ding the cabin, and we will have all green. Okay. We don't want toga, we want a flex 56 temperature, and that's what we're looking at, the upper left corner of the left display. Man flex 56. Thrust is set. We just got majorly buzzed by a general aviation aircraft. Move the thrust levers down into the climb position. There you can see our one waypoint of Roche is 34 miles. Icing is indicated. Get that wing and engine ice on. I see all sorts of traffic. I don't know specifically what traffic he was talking about. You can see some ice accumulating on the exterior of the aircraft. Many people have mentioned, and I agree, that the icing effect is a lot extreme, actually. We're above the clouds. I think I can turn off the engine and wing anti-ice. We have a 250 knot speed limit below 10,000 feet, and the airplane knows that. So it's keeping us right at 250 knots. But as soon as we cross that, threshold, above 10,000 feet, landing lights off. Runway turnoff lights off. If our landing were on runway 16 right, center, or left, we would have a significantly shorter flight, as we would be pretty much lined up for a straight in. Even now, at a heading of 155, the runways are lined at 160 or such in that general area. But as we departed to the west, but we're going to be arriving basically due north on runways 3-4. 3-4 left specifically, but 3-4 right, left, and center are northerly oriented runways. So we'll fly past Seattle, past Tacoma, in the vicinity of Olympia. Oh, there goes another aircraft zooming on by us. You can see we're well above 250 now, and our ground speed is 336. So the higher we go, that ground speed will climb, even though our indicated airspeed remains relatively the same. The wings are more efficient, the engines are more efficient at the higher altitude. Vancouver Center, Luftwaffe-for tree, request flight level 190. We're approaching transition altitude, 18,000 feet. We're also approaching our waypoint of Roche. Our next point is Buhner, which is 29 miles away. Many times these waypoints have meaning in the names. Buhner, if you follow Seattle baseballs, Buhner was a Seattle baseball player, and our arrival is on the Mariner 1 arrival, which is the name of the Seattle team. We've reached our cruise altitude, 19,000 feet. We'll let the folks know that they can take a few minutes and stretch. We don't have that opportunity for very long on this flight. Turn the seatbelt sign off. Actually, the last time I did this flight, I did fly into runways 16, and it was a much shorter flight. But I'm looking now at our routing on a separate screen, and it seems because we need to make that big hooking U-turn and approach from the south, our flight is significantly longer, actually twice as long. So we'll have a little patience, and we'll let the folks stretch a little longer. I'm going to use this opportunity, step away from the screen, and turn on one of my room lights to illuminate the room a little bit better. When I started the stream, we were in daylight here in Minnesota. I live in Minnesota. We were in daylight, but now darkness has fallen, and this room is getting kind of dark. Yeah, you're a good girl. After the Mariner waypoint, we're heading to the Buhner waypoint. After Mariner is Pinella, who was another Mariners player. Vegan, I'm not sure about that one, but unit refers to Randy Johnson. Randy Johnson was a pitcher. His nickname he was called the Big Unit. So I'm sure that's what unit refers to. And then we've got some other waypoints beyond that. Behind my left shoulder is my cat Sally. You might see her in your screen, just on the right-hand side of the screen. I've been away for a few days, so today is Valentine's Day, so I'm trying to give her a little bit of extra love. She certainly deserves it, putting up with me. Any companion that puts up with a flight sim geek has got to be pretty understanding. Oh, goodness. I imagine sometimes you have a flight sim widow who wishes that their hubby or girlfriend would not make the flight virtual, would actually have a real flight somewhere. But my flying today is pretty much all virtual. I've owned an airplane since, I think the last time I took an airplane to the skies was 2009. And of course, I don't know if you know this, but FAA pilot certificates actually never expire. There's no expiration date on your pilot certificate. What does expire is your medical. You need to keep going to the doctor and getting a medical checkout, and also your biannual flight review. You need to go up with the certified flight instructor periodically, and he will sign off that you are able to continue flying. But as far as the certificate itself, no picture and no expiration date. Another thing that's interesting, prior to 9/11, and I've been flying prior to 9/11, your certificate was simply a piece of paper, and your social security number was your pilot certificate number. So it was very low tech. Today, after, I believe it was 2002. In 2002, got a warning. I believe it's for icing. We'll get our icing on. 2002, they came out with a card. I believe this was all spurred because of 9/11. And also, you got a specific certificate number instead of your social security number. Okay, I'm going to ask control for a descent. Seattle Center, Luftwaffe-for tree, request flight level 120. Seattle Center, Luftwaffe-for tree, request flight level 120. Elevator down. Transition altitude. We're descending a little slowly. I'm going to kick up our descent rate a little bit. I wouldn't be too surprised if we got a little radar vectoring as we're getting close to the ILS approach. Our turn from a southerly heading to a northerly heading is rather sharp. Seattle Center, Seattle Center, Luftwaffe 4 tree requests flight level 100. Well, I'm not looking at a route chart right now, but I see our next waypoint has a constraint of 11,000 feet. So I don't think I was asking for something too unreasonable. But I know that controller is just keeping me safe. Nihas. Our next waypoint is Nihas. In Mariner Baseball, David Nihas in Mariner Baseball, David Nihas is the play-by-play announcer for the Mariners. So he's almost part of the team, you could say. There are two VFR corridors that cross SeaTac Airport, transitioning from the east to the west or from the west to the east. And imagine you've got aircraft landing on one runway and taking off on another runway, and it forms the shape of a V. And right in the middle of that V is where the VFR air corridors are. And there's two corridors. They're called the Mariner Corridor and the Seahawk Corridor, named after two of the big sports teams in the area. Well, we're getting the ice not detected indication. I think we can go off the to anti-ice for right now. I'm going to go to the McDo menu, the ATSU menu, the company menu, the ATIS menu. Seattle is our arrival airport. I'm going to change it over to the McDo for output, and I'm going to send a data request. It shouldn't take too long. I'm going to go back to the company menu, received messages, no messages. Back to the company menu, won't take too long. Company message is what the EFIS says. So we'll go into receive messages, and we have an ATIS. ATIS for Seattle is not available. Oh, that's not good. Okay, well, there are always other ways. Well, I've got the ATIS frequency tuned in for Seattle. We're still a little bit too far away to receive it. Our next waypoint is Griffey, King Griffey Jr., one of the highest paid players. King Griffey Jr., famous Mariner hitter. And he gets a waypoint named after him. As long as it's 5 letters, waypoints always have five. Seattle approach, Luftwaffe-for tree, request flight level 100. Here you can see on our right-hand side flight display, primary flight display, our hook maneuver as we fly south of the airport, do a left turn. Actually a little bit more than 180 degrees, and then come in and approach from the south. Here we go into those famous Microsoft clouds. We're approaching 10,000 feet. We can go into Christmas tree mode. Takeoff lights on, landing lights on, runway turnoff lights on, every light in the house. I'll ding the cabin crew. We haven't gotten an ATIS yet, but in Flight Simulator, we have a way of cheating a little bit. We actually there's downtown Seattle. The airport is right over here. We have a way of cheating a little bit and using this map with its concurrent weather already on it. So I'm going to go to the performance menu. I'm going to activate the approach phase. Seattle approach, Luftwaffe-for tree, request flight level 060. Oh, yeah, tried to get a little low. Again, I'm not referencing the approach charts, so I understand. I'm going to put the auto brakes on medium. I'm going to arm the speed brakes. I've been fiddling with my image today. Damn, that's one handsome looking guy. Almost no evidence of a bald spot. One thing I'd like to do here, instead of having a black background, I'd like to make that background transparent. And I'm wondering if there's a way to do it. I wonder what this... Seems maybe not. Okay, well, for right now, that'll have to be what we go with. Always more to learn, right? Always more to learn. We're also at 10,000 feet, which is the altitude for what's called a sterile cockpit. Should not have extraneous conversation below this altitude. Anything that's not dealing with the flight. Having a little fruit punch. I wish I could offer you some. Looks like we're going to be able to see what the inside of a cloud looks like.